adventure. It's about dreams. It's about overcoming some of the most significant oppression a person could be in their life to achieve the goals and dreams they wanted, which tied into complete incredible adventures at the highest level of competitive sailing in the world. We're glad to have Vlad Murnikov with us. Vlad, welcome to the Adventures Club.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here and letting me tell my story.
Yeah. So Vlad, let's start off. You grew up. Now we're not going back to Russia. We're going back to the USSR. Okay, the Soviet Union, back when it was. Most of us here remember the Cold War, the height of the tension between the West and the Soviet Union. You were in the complete throes of that. And I'd like to say you didn't necessarily have the most freedom to pursue your dreams in that. But let's look at what you actually accomplished here.
Well, first of all, yes, thank you, Phoebe, for bringing this first image here. And this is how the Southern Ocean look like when you sail around the world. And this is image of our boat, which we sail around the world. I have to say that this dream was with me probably from early childhood. And it was a crazy dream because Soviet Union at that time was totally closed. There was Iron Curtain. You cannot not even sail around. If somebody sail out of the Soviet Union, they would never come back. So there was this very strict big wall between Russia, Soviet Union, and I'm still confused myself how to call it. I hate the word Soviet Union because to me Soviet Union is an evil empire, as Ronald Reagan named it. It's a bad country, communist country. At the same time, Soviet Union at that time was often called Russia, but Russia now is a bad word too. So it's unfortunate for the country that no matter how you slice it, it's a problematic thing. And I only wish that things might change and we will see Russia would be a better country. But this is another image of sailing in around the world race. And as you see, these waves were probably around, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 feet. Sometimes they were bigger than that. And this race started, please next image. This is again, it's how life looks like on the boat when you sail at speeds over 20 knots, sometimes close to 30 knots. And boat is basically surfing at huge speed. And this is image of the start of the race. And amazingly, our boat, this is boat on the foreground with sort of interesting Pepsi logo. This is boat called FAZISI. This is my boat, which I launched, ran, and eventually brought around the world. This is a start in Southampton, UK, in September 2nd, 1989.
Yeah. Let's get into, this is the Whitbread. So let's get into actually what the Whitbread is. And this will be exciting, I think, to explain the endurance, the challenge. This is sort of the ultimate in sailing.
Yes, Whitbread is, it used to be the top endurance race. It's changed ownership a couple times, and now it's sort of little bit diminished in its value and its stature, but still it's a number one endurance race, sailing boat race around the world. There is another absolutely amazing race. It's called Vendée Globe, which is French race for single-handed sailors. And but that's another story. But Whitbread is for full crew, and it's started in 1973, and it's quite amazing for me, for my age. I remember when there was no ocean races, no nothing. People, they were single-handed, like Francis Chichester, who sailed around the world alone, and it was, wow, that's something unbelievable. Now this is pretty much a lot of people doing it. So this map shows actual route which our boat took around the world. So Whitbread around the world race takes several stages to sail around the world, and it's changed over time. This is actual race, the actual route which we took in the race in 89-90. So it started in Southampton, UK. Then it sailed to Punta del Este, Uruguay. Then we passed by the Cape of Good Hope and Cape Town because of apartheid policies. South Africa was still apartheid country and was sanctioned. So that made a very, very long leg through the Southern Ocean, more than 7,000 miles, to Australia. And then the next leg was to New Zealand, then around Cape Horn back to Punta del Este. And then there was a first stopover in Fort Lauderdale, United States, and then basically a very short jaunt across the Atlantic to back to Southampton.
Well, what was the overall time of the overall length of the time of the
Overall length
sailing?
of the race was 33,000 miles, and this route actually shows exactly as you see. It's kind of weaves around back and forth, so it actually shows the real course which we plotted on the boat. So it shows how we tacked, how we jibed, how we changed course, follow the wind. So the whole route was 33,000 miles, and usually a race starts in the fall. So when you go to Southern Ocean around Antarctica, then it's summer there. So it's survivable. If you do it the other way around, it would be too brutal.
And what's the general time frame that it takes to do the sailing?
It's on average at that time it was about 9 months, and it was five stages, 5 legs, and you sail from 2-3 weeks to 4-5 weeks, depending on the length of the leg, and then you spend 2-3 weeks in each stopover just to recuperate and have a couple of beers and stuff like this.
So let's go back. I like to look back. Where did it start? You're growing up in, I believe, Moscow. It's not really the sailing capital of the world. And how did you get introduced to sailing? And, you know, it's a huge jump from Moscow and the Soviet Union to sailing a maxi that you designed around the world. So tell us some of the backstory on this.
Yeah, this is... obviously, I knew a little bit, not much about Whitbread, but I knew about it, and I was in love. Yes, I dreamt about it, and I could never imagine that I would be able to do it. And I grew up not in Moscow. I grew up in Ukraine. Ethnically, I'm Ukrainian. And at that time, when we grew up in Soviet Union, that didn't mean anything. It was kind of like one big country. But now it's a big deal. Unfortunately, there is a war between Russia and Ukraine, so that's terrible. And so I grew up not far from Kiev, and but then I went to college in Moscow, and I finished my college in Moscow, and that's where I was living.
And what was your degree? What did you study in your college?
I was studying engineering, construction engineering and architecture. So I'm an engineer and architect.
Okay.
And then when I was already living in Moscow, well, I started sailing it back in Ukraine, but I was living in, just imagine, I was living in a town not far from Kiev on the river Dnipro, which is major river, the #1 river. And it was dammed with few artificial lakes. And this lake which we lived was about 20 miles wide. Can you imagine? So it's like you cannot see the other side. So it's almost like a sea, little sea. But our town, which was 200,000 people, there was a yacht club, and there was 5 yachts there. And that was all kind of like everything in Russia was government owned, was owned by the state. And I was a member of this club, but you can imagine when you have 5 yachts for 200,000 people, you don't have much chance to go sailing. You go sailing eventually when it's available. And then when I moved to Moscow, it was pretty much the same story. So I decided that instead of standing in line for waiting for my turn to go sailing, I will build my own yacht. And these are images of the yacht which I built. Now, the thing is, which I have to say that, first of all, it wasn't a very big yacht, but it was 25 feet long. Now, I built this yacht in my Moscow apartment. And the biggest room was 20 feet long.
Now, I got to ask you, was this a ground floor apartment? You're building in an apartment. I can't imagine doing this, but what floor were you on?
Well, it wasn't too far. It's not too high. It wasn't 20th floor, so it was second floor.
Second floor, okay.
But
Yeah.
still, you have to lower it down, and the window was a little bit narrow. Well, I designed the boat. I designed the boat that it could be built of blocks, of pieces, sort of like Lego. And then you can bring it out and connect everything together.
Now, did you have to have a hoist to hoist it down from the roof when you did this? Or?
No. The thing is that actually what happened that the day when we put it down, hoisted it down, well, first of all, we have to take the window down, take window away, because the boat was eventually turned out that it was a little bit wider than the window. So we took the window away. By this time, the whole neighborhood was around. So actually lowering it down wasn't a problem because there were hundreds of people cheering. So, and other than the narrow window, the project works fine, and in just pretty much in a week, we've been able to put it together.
Now, did you build the entire boat in your apartment and then lower it down, or did you have to do it piece by piece and lower it?
Piece by piece.
And then, so you
piece
did
by
one,
piece.
you'd lower it down, then you build another piece, lower it down. Is that how it went?
Yes.
Okay.
And the thing is that we were living there, and it took me probably a couple of years to build this boat. So it's almost ended my marriage, but my wife is Tatiana is still here. So, and we are happily married for 52 years. So it's actually made our marriage stronger.
Now, I'm just curious, in Russia, how hard was it to find material to build your boat? Because I can't imagine bringing 4x8 sheets of plywood up, every day to...
Yeah, that's why it took quite some time, because pretty much everything I was earning went to the boat, and you can imagine that it's not an easy family life, and while typical Moscow family would spend their evenings after work watching the only TV station in the country, I was basically putting the boat together. And then when I assembled I assembled pieces, so they were pretty much flat. So when I assemble one piece, I put it down on the floor, and then next one, and I would put a big rug on the floor, and we would live a normal life. It was the only thing that as process progressed, the headroom over the rug was growing kind of like smaller and smaller, so eventually we could only crawl on it. But luckily, I don't know, authorities didn't found anything about it, and people didn't complain about drills and everything. I tried to do. The funny thing that building this boat, most of things I did by hand. I had hand drill, and I had hand screwdrivers, because I didn't want to make noise. Otherwise, it's so. Anyway, that was my beginning. So after this, thinking and building Whitbread Yacht was a huge step, but not so huge. This was I already went through some crazy stuff, and I was ready.
Now, in the middle of Moscow, where do you sail your boat?
Well, I don't know if we've seen some
Phoebe can back up a couple to going by the Kremlin there. That would be great.
Yeah, this is actually my second boat, which I designed and built after that. This is my first boat, and I really feel absolutely great.
Yeah,
about
and
it.
if I think
So
Phoebe go back one more, I think that's where the Kremlin, when he's motoring the boat by the Kremlin. So.
No, one more, two more.
No, I think it was the other way.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, so
Oh, here
right
it is.
there.
Yeah, so I kept my boat in a kind of like ramshackle boat yard south of Moscow, but most of sailing went on small lakes north of Moscow. And funny that because Soviet government didn't want people sail in the sea, because you sail in the sea, you hoist your sails, and boom, you're gone. Nobody will ever see you. So most of sailing was actually concentrated around Moscow, which is in the middle of the country. There were a few artificial lakes, and that's where we sailed. So I kept the boat for winter in this yard, and in the spring I would bring her to these lakes, and then in the fall I would bring down to the yard. But that gave great chance to really sail through Moscow all the way. There were several big logs. You go up and down. So it was a pretty exciting trip, and you sail through the heart of Moscow next to the Kremlin.
Vlad, I got to tell you, just that, building your boat in an apartment and sailing through Moscow is enough for admission to the Adventures Club by itself, okay?
Thank you.
I mean, forget about the maxis and sail around the world. That by itself qualifies everything right there.
Thank you.
Now, let's take the leap. Okay, so you build a sailboat and you're doing this. Now, this leap from that experience, which is beyond belief, to now wanting to build a maxi and selling the Whitbread. Take us on that leap.
Yeah, so please, next slide, next image. So this is a quantum leap from basically building this boat in my apartment, and then now it's my picture. I don't know if you can recognize me. I was much better looking guy.
Yeah, lower left, in case you're curious, lower left.
So among the really top sailing elite of this time. So these are guys, Pierre Fellman, who won previous race, Laurie Smith, who was Olympic champion in sailing, then Grant Dalton, who was big offshore sailor, but he also won several America's Cup for New Zealand, and then Peter Blake, which was absolutely amazing guy, was killed, unfortunately, in Amazon, and then Tracy Edwards, who was the first woman who sailed around the world in this race. And here I am, and I think I don't remember, I think it's maybe Yachting World magazine put me among all this. So that was, yes, dreams sometimes come through. It's true. So next slide, please.
But here's what I'm saying. You're in the Soviet Union, and you don't actually have a lot of freedom to like participate in these things. I'm just curious, how did you go from building a boat and sailing around Moscow to let's build a maxi and sail in the Whitbread?
Yeah. When 1985 came and Mikhail Gorbachev became Russian president, There was some confusion first, and nobody knew what he wants. Was a crazy time. But gradually, he started turning country toward a little bit of freedom. And there was time which was called, at that time was called perestroika, glasnost, which glasnost means openness, telling the truth. And first people were, Russians are a tough bunch. Russians didn't believe this. Russians say, well, it's just a trick to basically to trick us up and put us to jail afterwards. But all of a sudden I felt this sort of like wind of freedom blowing through the country. And first it wasn't a wind, it was just a light puff. But you can feel that things changed. And I don't know why and how. Well, actually I know, but it's another story. But I decided, well, I was 35 this time, which is not, I wasn't old, but a big part of my life already passed without achieving anything. I was just a real small cog in a government machine. And here I decided, it's like I'll do my best. I try to do something, I will launch this program and see what's gonna happen. And of course, when I start talking about doing Whitbread in Russia, people told me that I'm crazy and I end up basically in big trouble and the government would not ever let me do this. But this image shows result of it. It's just how dream becomes a beautiful, absolutely stunning, big, huge sailboat. So, yeah, believe me, it's like everything starts with a dream.
That's fantastic. So let's look at this. You've got to find a shipyard to build it. You've got to find the supplies and the materials, the design. Take us through the process of this.
Yes, well, before starting the yard, you have to find money. So, yes, Phoebe, next image, please. Yes, so this is the boat. So funny that actually we started with design first. When Gorbachev really came to power, he allowed some sort of little scale private enterprises. They're called cooperatives. And together with a few other designers in St. Petersburg, I was from Moscow, and I knew some guys from St. Petersburg, and we created a design cooperative, and we started basically sort of on spec, without any idea what's going to happen. We started designing maxi yacht. And then amazing thing happened that I do believe that if you really want something to happen, it happens. So I met a gentleman from Georgia, Soviet Georgia. I mean, now it's a separate country, independent country, Georgia. And I met, just by accident, I met this gentleman who was a big boss in a region called Poti in Kolkhida in Georgia. And he was a mayor there, and he was also a chairman of all the industrial enterprises there. And I mentioned my idea, mentioned Whitbread, and I mentioned the fact that other teams have huge sponsorship. And he asked me, what is sponsorship? I said, well, you have to give money. And he says, how much? And eventually he became our first sponsor. So that happened pretty much by accident.
Okay. And
with this backing, his name is Victor Tikhov. Unfortunately, he already passed away. And that started becoming reality. And so this few images are actual drawings. At that time, there was in the West there was a little bit of beginning of AutoCAD drawing, but back in Russia we did everything by hand. So all this, I think they're beautiful drawings. We did everything by hand.
What was the time frame? Did you have you had a build date, and did you have a certain race you're trying to get into?
Yes, I started, and this is image of how a boat looked like, and I put it here because I really love this image, how streamlined boat looks like, and I'll tell a few words about design a little bit later, but now I'll tell you this timeline. I started, in reality, I mean in seriousness doing this sometime in '86. Then in '87 I met this gentleman, Viktor Tikhov, and he decided to give us some seed money. First it was a little bit, and then it was kind of progressing. And then we started construction in sometime in mid-'88, and the start was in '89. So this was already kind of in a tight schedule, and we will get back to the tight schedule later. So let's go forward.
Yeah, I'll continue with the photos here, yeah.
Yeah, so part of this, in Georgia, part of this conglomerate of Poti region was commercial yard which built hydrofoiled ferries, aluminum. And I don't know, if you've been to Greece, you maybe sail them. The hydrofoils in Greece, most of them were built on this yard. So they already had the pretty much advanced technologies, they had knowledge and everything. But still, you can imagine that commercial ferry and sailboat are totally different animals. If you build ferry which is carries, I don't know, like 500 passengers, and it's a couple tons heavier than necessary or designed, that's not a big deal. Nobody would care. But if you build boat which is even 100 kilos or 200 kilos heavier than designed, that would be a big deal. So that's created a huge... So here I want to start with going back to name of my presentation, Against All Odds. The whole thing was, the whole project was like a huge roller coaster. We, like the fact that I met this gentleman, Viktor Tikhov, who became first sponsor for our project, was absolutely sheer luck. So I was basically, wow. But it's always in this project, always something good was followed by something bad or terrible, and then again something terrible followed by something good. So that's the name of this whole project.
Okay, so you're starting to put the boat together. Now, I'm assuming in Russia, you've got the basics for the hull, but a lot of the technology for a maxi for the Whitbread is not in Russia. That's not something that's indigenous to that economy and manufacturing base. I'm assuming that's Western oriented.
Yes, the biggest boat before that was built in Russia was probably maybe 40 feet, and this is 83. And 83 is not just 2 times bigger, it's like 10 times bigger at least. And no deck hardware, no winches, no blocks, no rigging, nothing was manufactured in Russia. So we had to procure it in the West. So parallel to the designing and building boat, I was also immersed completely over my head into sponsorship. But the challenge is that growing up in Russia, you can imagine that idea of sponsorship, or idea of money, was totally foreign for me. So that was a challenge which I have to face.
And we were talking earlier that this is the time Arm & Hammer is coming to Russia and bringing Western technology in. There's different things happening at that point. And this is what's amazing to me when we discuss these things. I'm sitting here with someone who's been with some of the top people in the sailing field, bar none. and some of the top people in the economic field, bar none. It's just amazing the experience you've had. So share with us some of the people that you actually got to meet that you were trying to get sponsorship for and what happened with that.
Yeah, just one glimpse. So Ted Turner started CNN at the early 80s, and he went to Moscow and he opened the CNN office there. And he started after Russia invaded Afghanistan. Moscow Olympic Games in 1980 were boycotted. Then Russia in turn boycotted Los Angeles Olympic Games in 1984. So Ted Turner came up with the idea of so-called goodwill games. So he says, because on government level, you cannot compete on Olympic Games. On sort of like commercial level, I will create a game where Russian American athletes can compete in sporting event. So he spent a lot of time in Moscow. And Ted Turner is a very well-known sailor. He won America's Cup, I think, no, I don't
Mid-70s, yeah.
Yeah, mid-70s, yeah. So somehow, again, by sheer luck, I was able to get invitation to get to some of the events where he was.
We're talking about this, these invitations, you can't get them.
Yeah,
and you wind up getting, you talk about against all odds, you get an invitation to Ted Turner's event.
Yeah, and then just imagine, this is a huge event with Soviet government bureaucrats and top-level guys, officials, and Ted Turner and his CNN team and everything. And I don't know, I was so obnoxious back then. So I actually made my way to his table and I started talking about sailing and he said, take a seat next to me. and we started talking and then he likes Russian vodka. So after a few drinks, he stood up, he kind of like, he holds the imaginable steering wheel and he told me, well, okay, count me on. I would like to help you to build this boat and sail on it. Wow. And you can imagine that riding back on Moscow train, metro train, back then it was happiest night of my life. And he gave me his card and said, come back tomorrow and we will discuss details. So next day when I come to his office, he is visibly having a terrible hangover. and he tells me, maybe I was a little bit too enthusiastic yesterday. and I have really big losses with Moscow office and with Goodwill Games and everything. So sorry, next time.
I got to tell you, that makes an incredible story. It makes an incredible story now that you've succeeded. That Ted Turner said, yes, we're going to sponsor you. I'm going to sail part of the race. You go back the next day and he's hungover going, maybe I overspoke. This has every makings of a great movie that nobody would believe that it happened. So, okay, so what's your next? You got to get some money. You got to make this thing happen. What do you do?
Yes. First of all, parallel to all this, construction continues. Well, first of all, people, sailors, nobody believes that we can do anything, and it would never happen. So people were very reluctant, and nobody wanted to join me. But then, gradually, as more information and things changed in Russia, and the whole thing kind of developed.
It's sort of hand in glove with Gorbachev changing the culture, right?
Exactly, yes. And all of a sudden, the whole country, whole Soviet Union, started believing that, it's things changing. It's totally different government, different leader, different ruler, and things changed toward our project, and people flooded us. It's like I had more than 70 applications to join the team, and the whole thing was we needed to help this yard to build a boat because they didn't have experience to building a boat. So huge amount of people came to get involved. And things started progressing pretty fast. At the same time, and a few more images, please. And more. Yeah. So the construction of the hull progressed very nicely, and we were ready to, well, it was almost ready, but idea was that we will finish boat in UK, no, we finish boat in Georgia and then sail around Europe to UK to launch boat there and equip it with all the equipment and everything. And then we found out that, not we found out, we knew that we don't have enough time to do that. It was clearly that we cannot make it time to UK. And at that time, Pink Floyd rock band came to Moscow, and they brought all the equipment, amplifiers, everything on a huge Soviet Ruslan airplane, biggest cargo plane in the world. And the bulb came in my head, and their equipment was about 200 tons. Wow. And this plane could bring it in one flight. And I thought that instead of trying to finish boat and sail it around, which we didn't have time, why don't we put the boat into the same plane and fly it to UK? So before this, we actually launched boat in Georgia.
But you also got Pepsi as a sponsor at this time,
Yeah,
right?
this is what coming next. So we launched boat, and this is named FAZISI, and this story is so complex and so big, so I cannot tell 10% of what was there. But there is a book which you can read and read everything. But it's also a boat called FAZISI, and FAZISI is a name of the river on Georgia coast, where Jason and Argonauts sailed for the Golden Fleece. So just imagine the whole, I don't know, yes, history, and also we've been arrogant enough that we thought that we are Argonauts, we're going for the glory and all this sort of things. So this is, the boat was first launched just a hull, bare hull. And this is named FAZISI on the side in Georgian alphabet. Georgian alphabet is unique for Georgia. And now you can see on the crane, you can see Pepsi logo. Yes. What it's doing there. So next slide, please. So this is breaking the champagne bottle on the bow, and then that's pretty much the same thing. And here's Pepsi logo. So there is a gentleman. His name is Dennis Conner. He is probably one of the best-known American sailors. He was the guy who lost America's Cup to Australians, and the saying was going that he who will lose America's Cup will have his head displayed instead in the New York Yacht Club. And luckily he won America's Cup a few years later. So when Danny saw, by this time our project became so well known, not only in Russia, but all over the world in sailing. So Dennis learned about our project, and he came to us, and he actually sent us fax. There was no email there back then, but he sent us a fax, and he says, if you come and I come, you give me best possible PR, visibility, everything, I bring you a sponsorship. And he came and he brought us a contract with Pepsi. And contract was for pre-start period, for the time before the start. And he explained me that why they are cautious, because he says they don't believe you will be able to finish boat in time. So they don't want to give you complete contract for entire race, because you have to first start the race, and then we will continue. So there was contract for the pre-start period, and then there was option to continue for the entire race. So that's how this boat became FAZISI Pepsi. And that's the boat inside of the airplane.
And you're flying the airplane to the UK, right?
Yes, and then the other reason also why we needed airplane, because unfortunately the civil war broke up in Georgia. This was when Soviet Union started to fall apart and breaking down into separate countries. And Georgians wanted independence, and they protested in Tbilisi, and there was some shooting, and basically it started practically civil war. There was a big shooting around. And when we were putting this boat into the plane in airport, there was really heavy shooting around. So we basically escaped in the very last moment. And then 3 hours later, we arrived in Heathrow. And you can imagine that there was this famous shot which went on all the newspapers in UK, evening papers, that there was this shot of the airplane, and it's loads through the nose goes up together with pilot's cabin, with everything, and then the boat slides out, and there was a Concorde on the background. So there was the headline was "Perestroika arrived in Heathrow."
But here's what I thought was interesting too. With that, there's actually bookies in London that have bets that you won't have the boat ready in time. And this is amazing that this even hit the betting circuits.
Yeah, because just imagine, we arrived there, that was July 15 when we arrived in Heathrow. And the race starts at September 2nd. So it's a month and a half. So when we brought boat to the yard in Hamble, that the yard manager told us, well, you need at least 6 to 8 months to finish the boat. And we have just 1 month. So we had some help from professionals, but mostly it was crew working around the clock. So this is again, it's the whole theme of going up and down, of roller coaster. So when you feel like, okay, you definitely you're late, you have no time to finish, and then you do finish. And there are a few more slides showing what we accomplished later. So this is boat hull completely finished, with keel installed, everything, with emblazoned with Pepsi logo, and then when the boat officially launched, so the Pepsi logo was painted on the transom, and then there were Russian, Soviet and American flag, and they were laying on top of logo. So when they were lifted, then they revealed the logo. And this is, so by this time, we also, in kind of like same theme as Pepsi sponsorship of Russian boat, we had 2 captains. We had one captain was American, Skip Novak, and one captain was Soviet guy, Alexei Grishenko from Kiev. And that was, again, one shot which, well, how Pepsi told us, do a good job for us in a pre-start period, and we will be sponsors for entire race. So we did absolutely damn good job for them. And this went through all the newspapers and everything. So you can imagine, 2 captains went up to the mast with 2 flags and Pepsi logo on a big spinnaker. So that was...
It's just an incredible shot. It's an incredible shot with what you got. And then you wound up, what was it, sailing the boat up the Thames?
Yes, we also decided to do pull this PR trick. So we arranged with London port authorities. So we will sail up the Thames River. Sail, not motor, but sail with under spinnaker. And we...
and it's a Pepsi spinnaker, right?
Yeah, Pepsi spinnaker. And they opened up Tower Bridge for us. And Tower Bridge, if you remember, is very narrow. And when bridge goes up, it's only 100 feet, and our mast was 100 feet. So So we sail with Pepsi Spinnaker, and again, you can imagine that was all on TV, on newspapers, everywhere. I don't have this image, but this was something.
Incredible.
Yeah,
And Pepsi was so grateful.
Yeah, well. Yeah, so that's.
Well, no, how grateful was Pepsi when you did all that?
So we don't know. We know what happened next. So in this race, there was no American team. And apparently somebody made an interview in one of major networks. I don't know which one, but one of major networks. And basically the whole thing was why Pepsi supports Soviets and not supports American team. And Pepsi got cold feet and they decided to pull it off.
Now, for me, this is, you talk about against all odds. This is just persevering over just barrier after barrier after barrier that you should have never even had a chance at this thing.
Yeah.
And now you got your boat put together at the start of the race and your major sponsor pulls. So let's continue. What happens?
Yeah. And at that time we had two skippers, one Soviet Ukrainian guy, and one was American Skip Novak, who was one of the most well-known skippers at that time, and he still is. So I remember Skip Novak was calling Pepsi and screaming in phone that was just old-time phones, and he said, "If you don't want to support Soviets, support me. I'm American." And nothing happened. And to me, of course, this is basically they told that they're afraid of when we come to Fort Lauderdale, there would be backlash why Pepsi supports Soviet boat with red flag and everything. And to me, this was I never understood it because Pepsi was doing business with Soviet Union for 15 years, and if you know that Stoli vodka, it's Pepsi. So that was a barter deal. Pepsi was bringing Pepsi Cola to Russia and taking Stoli and selling it in America. So that was, so if it was fine for Pepsi to do business with bad Soviet Union, then why cannot they do business with bunch of sailors who wants to sail around the world? So it's kind of...
So we still have the race to get into. I mean, already this has been just an incredible feat of overcoming obstacle after obstacle just to get to the start of the race. I mean, the fact that you arrive in Great Britain, it takes 8 to 10 months to make your boat. You get it done in 30 days, sail up the Thames, have Pepsi as your sponsor. They drop you at this point, okay, and the race is getting ready to start. So let's start the race.
Yeah, so when when FAZISI sailed with huge spinnaker, sailed through the starting line of the Whitbread, nobody knew it because we kind of, this Pepsi debacle happened just a couple of days before the start. So first of all, we didn't tell crew because we don't want to kind of destroy their morale because, and we didn't announce it to media because again, like why do it? It's too bad. And so when we sail, again, media was, oh wow, this amazing boat, they accomplished it, but nobody knew that we were totally broke and we had no money, we had nothing, and pretty much the project was, the project ended at that time. Now, the boat sailed down to 7,000 miles to Punta del Este in South America. First of all, this was the first sea trial for the boat. and pretty much few guys in the crew been to the ocean, but most of guys never been to the ocean because of Iron Curtain. It's impossible. So initially boat was kind of like, there was 23 boats which started. So initially boat was like on, I don't know, 17th, 15th position, then 14, 12, and kind of moving up and up and up. And now you can have to know that in London at that time, London bookies, they were taking bets for the racing, for sailboat racing. And the bet for our boat was 100 to 1 that we even make to the start line. And all of a sudden we took the start line and we sailed and we start moving through the fleet. So, next slide, please. Yeah, this slide just shows another beautiful image of what it is. How do you sail in the open ocean and with, and then yeah, next one, please. Yes. So boat finish in Punta del Este on the 6th position out of 23 boats. And all the boats were in the yacht club. They put them according to the finish. So the first, second, third, and so the next to our boat you can see the red hull. It's called Steinlager. It's a New Zealand boat, Peter Blake's boat. They finished first. Guess which boat was second? Second boat was FAZISI, because yacht club say, but guys, what you accomplished is you better than winners, but we cannot put you first because you haven't finished first. We put you second. So, and this picture is in the middle is Princess Fergie, Princess of York, I think, because Whitbread it's a British race, so it was patronized by royal family, and Princess Fergie came to Punta del Este, and she had took a picture with our entire crew. So this was all great and nice, but what happened next? Imagine that the crew, when sailors sail a month in sea and come to shore, they are a little bit kind of like unhinged. Then imagine the Russian sailors who've been all their life in kind of like in confines of Soviet Union, and they sailed away. And not only sail, they all of a sudden they became celebrities. They finished 6th. They put next to Steinlager. They are heroes, and all the TV, all the interviews, and everything. And it was euphoria, and it was well. We had to first of all, just imagine. So here are the sailors who are euphoric. And here there are a few guys who know that there is no money, we cannot sail any further, we lost sponsorship, and it's end of the line. So what we do next? Meanwhile, sailors went on the strike, and they say, why do we have American captain here? We can do everything ourselves. We already proven that we are great guys. We are 6 out of 23 world best boats. They wrote a letter to our initial sponsor, FAZISI company, and they say, well, we want Skip Novak removed, we want this, we want that, we want, we are the best. Now, we had 2 skippers, one American, Skip Novak, and Soviet, Alexei Grishenko. And you can imagine the stress we as leaders of the project had, including Russian captain. And we pretty much, we knew that we came to the end. While crew didn't know, crew was almost, it was almost mutiny. And one day we found a Russian skipper committed suicide. So, and when somebody does this, you can know and never know. But we all were in such a situation that I I sort of understood him because I was so deeply depressed. I never thought about anything like that, but I was totally depressed, and it's like we hit the wall. We didn't know what to do next. But then again, totally out of blue, consortium of Uruguayan companies. Uruguay is a tiny country in South America, and mostly it's ranching, cattle, beef, skins, leather and stuff like this. And they had business with Russia, leather and a lot of other stuff. And they wanted to expand. And all of a sudden, they stepped up and they say, well, we want to sponsor you if you help us to kind of reach toward Russian government. And we said, we'll try. And you imagine that this whole stopover in Uruguay was probably less than 3 weeks, and we made a deal.
You know, it's amazing. You talk about a low, your captain commits suicide. You think like everything's lost. And this is where I talk about dreams and what it takes to persevere in life and overcome. And then all of a sudden, the Uruguayan Ranchers Association or whatever it is comes forward and says, we want more business here, we'll sponsor you.
Exactly.
And you have another breath of life breathed into you to continue the next step.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. When you think everything's lost, it's not lost.
Yes.
There's still hope there if you keep that vision on the horizon. So
Yes.
So you take off, you get that, and you take off. And does Skip Novak stay on as captain then?
Yes, and Skip Novak remained as the only captain.
Okay.
And after that, so it wasn't that much money, but again, we've been able to stretch it to cover expenses for this stopover and for next stopover in Australia.
So then you go to Perth.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
And first it was Southern Ocean. So
Right.
this is the image of sailing in Southern Ocean. And you can imagine that sailing around the world means actually sailing around Antarctica, in a nutshell. You go south, you go down Atlantica, you sail around Antarctica, and you go up Atlantica back to. So obviously there were some huge icebergs, and that was time. Now in around the world race, they put limits. You cannot go south further than certain points for safety. At that time, there was no limits. You can go as far as you would like to. And
The further south you go, the shorter it is.
the shorter it is, yeah.
Okay, so you hit Perth, then you head on over to Auckland, right?
Yeah, and then we came to Auckland. So this is next image, please. And imagine how relaxed are the guys.
Imagine sleeping below, right? Fixing dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, this slide, just imagine. So at yachting press, well, what was, I kind of didn't divulge a lot on design, but the boat was very innovative in design. It was super light. It was half of the weight of the other Maxis. And the rules of that time, it was called IOR. I don't know if sailors are here. So IOR, it was a combination of different factors: length, beam, displacement, sail area, and blah, blah, blah. And you have one formula, and you have one rating number. So basically, if you have a lighter boat, you have to have smaller sail area. If you have heavier boat, you have more sail area, and stuff like this. So everything was kind of like interconnected. In our design, what I was proponent of super light. I was efficiency against power. So there were some boats which were really big, heavy, and with tons of sail area. My idea was to have super light boat with less sail area. First of all, it's cheaper. Secondly, it's less taxing on crew, because if you have sails instead of one sail weight 500 pounds, it weighs 250 pounds. That's a huge difference when you hoist the sails. So idea was to have super light boat. Now, how to make boat super light? What we did, we actually make it low freeboard. So boat, we cut almost a foot from freeboard and deck. So first of all, it makes deck and everything going down, and center of gravity goes down. And because of low freeboard, our boat was nicknamed a Russian submarine. So this picture shows that how much water we had on deck sailing in Southern Ocean. Now, this is heavy boat, British boat, Rossmann's, which was twice as heavy as us. Look how much water they did have.
Wow.
And they were not called Russian submarine. The truth is that because our boat was so light, even it has smaller volume, it was like a cork. Water come on deck, she just jump up because she was so light. On Rossmann's, when water comes up on deck, it just pushes boat down and boat sits there. So this was this actually shows how low freeboard is.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. So you move over, so you get your sponsorship, because I'm looking at the money on this. You're looking at the sponsorship from Uruguay that gets you to Perth and then over to Auckland, right?
This actually image, this is in Auckland, New Zealand.
Okay.
And this is in Port Race. When, in addition to obviously all the legs, there were some in Port Race when we raced on short distances, and we took, you see it, typically our crew was 12 people, but right now on the boat probably at least 30 people, and because we invited guests from local yacht clubs to sail on the boat. And that's more like real number of people on the boat.
So you wind up getting another big surprise in Auckland.
Yes, in Auckland, you see on the back, it's FM 89, I think. So we got sponsorship of local FM station. And at that time, it was the only FM station in New Zealand. And you can imagine with FM station on your back, that means that you have unlimited advertising. So what they did for us, they would come to all of their clients and they say, okay, we will give you free advertising time and you give money to Russian boat. And for them, of course, they can create as much advertising time as they wish, because they are the only FM station in the country. This is in Auckland, and this is the regular day. This is not something special. This is people in Auckland at that time, I don't know how it is now, but at that time people were absolutely crazy about sailing. And usually in the Whitbread there was always boats from New Zealand in Whitbread. And New Zealand always wins America's Cup, and they are really sailing nation. So for this race, and usually their boats were the so-called people boat. People just put money, small donations, and they build a boat, and it's New Zealand people's boat. For this race, there was 2 New Zealand boats, Steenlager, Peter Blake's, and Fisher Paykel, Grant Dalton's, and they were both heavily sponsored by, probably at least $7 million each, by big corporations, New Zealand corporations. And so there was no people's boat. So when we arrived totally broke without no money, we became people's boat.
Which is amazing to me. You show up, and the people of New Zealand say, we're going to support you, and embrace you, and we're going to send you on your way, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And to me, a testament of following your purpose, that things align when you actually stay with your purpose that you have.
Yeah. Just one thing. This radio station, 89 FM, they applied for the raffle, for lottery. And they told us usually it takes at least 6 to 9 months to get approval from New Zealand government. They got approval in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then what they did, then they went to a BMW dealership, and they give us BMW, they give us a car. and then they went to, I don't remember, some airline. They give us return tickets and hotel to fly to Fort Lauderdale, United States. And we will give you free advertising space. So there was hundreds of this. This all became prizes for lottery. And just imagine, the whole stopover was just 3 weeks. Everything was organized in 3 weeks.
Wow.
The donations, lotteries, and everything. So that was, by the time we left New Zealand, we were like seasoned businessmen.
I want to move us along here just with the time. So you leave New Zealand, you come back around to Uruguay. Is that right?
Yeah, then it was very easy because we still have some money from these companies.
But you pop into Fort Lauderdale. I think that's where it gets, because you had this whole situation with Pepsi was concerned about backlash with Russian sailors.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened when you're Fort Lauderdale.
They couldn't have been more wrong. Of course, you can imagine then when first ever Russian yacht to arrive to the United States came to Fort Lauderdale, you can imagine. It was, first of all, it was endless party. It was, and
So this when I'm going through the photos, I'm going, what? And then Vlad's telling me what this is. So tell the audience, tell us what this is here.
Yeah, that's a Hooters pageant of most beautiful girl in Fort Lauderdale, and our crew. You see, the Russians are coming on T-shirts, and they.
So your crew was the judge. Is that what you said?
Judges.
So
yeah,
their crew is the judge for the Hooters Most Beautiful Girl contest. I don't think that's being rejected by Americans for some reason. Okay.
Yeah, but more than that, we actually not only we made money for ourselves, we made money for other teams. Like there was Swedish boat, the card, which was sponsored by MasterCard. So they had full sponsorship. But they came to us and said, would you agree with us to do some sponsorship events? And what we did with card, so on the boats, on these boats you have the grinders. So you have big, huge winches, and then you have people who grind them to pull the sheets. And the grinders usually huge, big guys. So our grinder, Juki, and the biggest guy from Swedish team, so we decided, we agreed with the Swedish boat, we will do a boxing match of them. And actually it was a real huge arena. And guess who was the referee for the boxing match? Muhammad Ali.
Wow. 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 Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So we need to just keep this on time here. So you leave Fort Lauderdale, you're going into New York now.
Yeah, so the gentleman who arranged everything, all events for us in Florida, his name is Frank Lennon. He was a publisher of Palm Beach Illustrated magazine. He knew everybody in Florida and in Palm Beach and everything. So he arranged huge amount of publicity, events and everything. And he himself, he said he was so shocked to see how successful was the stopover. So he said, okay, I arrange, as soon as we finish in UK, we sail back and we will do a goodwill tour through all the eastern coast, starting from Maine to Florida. In each yacht club, we will, and at that time also Ted Turner's son, Teddy Turner Jr., bought similar maxi yacht, and we did series of matches. We basically teamed up, so we sailed together, like Russian boat and American boat through entire eastern seaboard. And this is how we came back to America, and this is Statue of Liberty. And next slide is my kind of like bittersweet, because this is we sail in New York, and that's probably when we started on the race around the island. And you see that the towers are still standing.
Yeah. And with this, I mean, you have this this is just an incredible story of overcoming every obstacle. Lady luck with you along the way, but I actually look at that as you create your own luck in these situations. And, with the obstacles you faced with the oppression of the Soviet Union, the control, the financing, all the different things that you came about. Then you go on and you start designing some of the most incredible boats around the world. So take us into your yacht
story
designs.
Didn't stop with FAZISI. So in last 35 years, I designed great variety of boats, worked with some amazing designers, cooperated. One was Ted Hood. I don't know if somebody knows this name. I worked with Ted Hood for almost 10 years as a design consultant. And this is one of the boats I designed for Ted Hood. And I designed a lot of classic boats, both sail and power. But my approach to design is always, even with FAZISI, I would claim that FAZISI, in my view, is one of the most beautiful sailing yachts ever designed and built. And I try to blend in my designs art with innovation and technology. So I try to make boats which look beautiful, and it doesn't matter. It could be classic boat or the most futuristic boat, but it should be beautiful, and it should have some sort of innovation in it. And with this short, I will just add. So I designed, for example, single-handed dinghy, MX Ray, which is just 13 feet long, like laser, but it's twice as fast as laser. I invented a system of equipment, single-handed dinghy with asymmetric spinnaker. We hoist spinnaker and the boat speed doubles. And this single-handed dinghy sailed, we recorded speed of 27 knots. Wow. Yes. And I came to Vanguard Laser at that time, and I say, guys, here's idea, why don't we develop something together? And they say it's impossible. One person cannot handle mainsail, steering, hiking, and hoisting spinnaker and everything. So, okay. And I created my own company, and I built 300 of them, and people still
we have some pictures of the
yeah, so pictures
laser.
will be there. And then the other thing is also, I experimented for almost 15 years. I experimented with hydrofoils, with foiling ballast. I don't know if you've heard about canting keel. I invented flying keel which actually flies parallel to the boat. And this, we built prototype, and this research and development actually influenced modern America's Cup boats. So that's, I'm really proud of this. So now just a quick kind of like slideshow of these images, and then we go to question and answers.
And one of the things I want to note on that, you've got like this reverse bow on these that goes down instead of up, which is fascinating. So,
yeah, it's actually, there is a lot of thinking here, and it's now many boats start adapting it. I don't know if you noticed, but
incredible designs, absolutely incredible designs. I take it you're using a little AutoCAD these days. And there we have. So, if we have an opportunity for some Q&A, so have some questions for Vlad, raise your hand, and Steve Whiteman will bring the mic around to you, and we'll answer your questions. Any questions here?
Just a quick reminder, if you brought a glass or a cup in here tonight, if you could please take it back with you, I'd appreciate it.
Vlad, thanks very much. As one sailor to another, I'm very, very impressed and amazed with your design and the history. It's just a great program. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm curious about your nationality. Are you U.S. citizen now, or still Russian? Or
No, I'm U.S. citizen. We live
dual?
here for 35 years.
Still Russian or no? Dual?
No. Actually, this was interesting story how I renounced my Russian citizenship, but that's for another.
That's
evening.
another adventure. It's another adventure. We got some, Steve. Hey, Steve, we've got some hands on down there. Raise your hand up there. Yeah.
Quick question, where is she now? The boat?
Well, the boat changed hands several times. Unfortunately, she was in 2017. She was in hurricane in Key West, and she is kind of like now the new owner tried to restore her, but I don't know what's going to happen. It's just she was badly damaged in hurricane.
How'd you do in the Southern Ocean with a light boat like that? Better or worse? In general, I mean, the freeboard was a very cool design. But how'd you do on the rest of the legs? You came in sixth, first leg.
Yes, and the rest of the legs is actually, it's a question of money. The leaders had enough budget to change sail inventory. We didn't. What we had enough just maintain the boat from falling apart. But we didn't have enough money to build new set of sails. And sails, you know, they're getting older, and they get worn. And so we gradually went from 6th place, and we finished 11th. But as for the ocean, I skipped this thing. The boat was overbuilt, and we had to change keel before this. So there was much more to the story than, and I have a few books for sale, so if somebody wants to buy, I will be happy to sign it, and there would be more information. But the boat was heavier than we designed here. The challenge is that it's kind of like this was the first boat of this magnitude we designed. And we did a great job from one perspective. The boat was absolutely fantastic. But it was difficult to build. It was very challenging boat to build because she was so precise. So you have to build her exactly to specifications. She came out heavier. So what happened that actually heavier boats suffer in light winds. So when the start of the race, start of the leg, we are kind of like, we are not in the leaders. Then when we go into the open ocean, we're doing better and better and better. And then usually when we just about 300 miles from the finish, we usually were about like 6th, 5th, 4th, and then other boats will overcome us. So that was a challenge. But as an absolute speed, the boat shown close to 30 knots boat speed, top. Boat showed second result in 24 hours, 386 miles in 24 hours.
Wow.
Only one boat was faster than that.
Wow.
So your design is absolutely beautiful. It's sexy and fast. But I also noticed the wheels seem much further forward than a lot of sailboats. I think that we'll have the two steering wheels further back.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that also impacts how it feels to the helmsman?
Yes. So what happened that after that, America's Cup boats adopted this. And so later, America's Cup boats were designed, the deck layout was almost exactly like FAZISI. And the reason for wheels to be forward, first of all, just imagine a boat is 20 feet wide. So when boat heels and you are in the middle of the boat, you are 20 feet above the water level. So you have excellent view of the waves, of everything. Then the other thing is also, this helmsman, it is right in the middle, so just 2 feet in front of him are head sail trimmers. And 2 feet behind him are mainsail trimmers. So within 4 feet, there is entire crew. If you are on the back of the boat, the guys are 15 feet in front of you, and it's difficult. In ocean, you cannot communicate. You cannot hear anybody. And here, you can speak, talk, no, the layout was absolutely fabulous.
Does it give a different feel to the helmsman being in the middle instead of being aft?
Well, it does, because you can imagine that basically you steer the boat as if she is 40 feet long. But in reality, she's 83 feet long. So you steer her almost like a dinghy. Plus, the boat was also extremely well balanced. This boat was, you really, as Jim told you, you can steer it by one hand fingertips. Why there are two wheels? Because on different decks. It's not because you need two people to steer the boat. Though Skip told me that his previous experience was with big heavy boats when they had literally had two helmsmen steering the boat and they still cannot control her in the past. But with FAZISI it was different, yes.
You said earlier that you were having some troubles with your wife while pursuing your dreams. Who would you say was your biggest inspiration while you were having these troubles at home to continue to pursue your dreams?
My wife.
So your wife was not only concerned for the future, but also supporting you. I just wish I could find a woman like that someday. Thank you.
Good luck.
We got a couple up here, Steve. If you, okay.
You know, I missed the introduction of your very last round of slides. Were those primarily design items, or were they all actually constructed? Some of them are so futuristic and fascinating looking. So I was wondering how many of those were actually built?
Yes, some of them were built, so some of them became reality, some of them just designed, some of them just concepts. And but I would say that pretty much all of them, good thing that I got paid for this. So I wish all of them, but the thing is that when you do something totally radical and innovative, it's not not everything would be built, because it's a cliche, but it's ahead of its time. And innovative things and radical things, they are very expensive. So when we start designing with client, I'm telling client my estimate. I am telling him this will cost this much, and client say, "Oh, no way, it will cost this much." I say, "No, trust me." So we go ahead, and then when I do some preliminary design, we go to yards with bids and everything, and lo and behold, it's pretty much close to what I told the client. And he said, "Oh, wow, I don't have this much money." So sometimes this happens. And but I'm very happy in the way that I do design the way I like to do. When I was working for Ted Hood, for example, I know that often design is led by client, and that's fine. Client pays, and he can, but the challenge is that in most of cases, clients don't know what they want and what could be done. And I am happy that I usually, if I meet a client that wants to do the way he wants, I say, well, then you do it. You don't need me, and that's it.
Thank you. We have one final question here.
Oh, sorry. Hope it wasn't.
No.
This is not the final one. But my question for you is, as you encounter these difficulties, especially the big ones like the Ted Turner story, Pepsi story, how do you get back up on your feet? Like, what is that process for you?
Well, I would say that this period of my life, I never experienced anything like this before or after. This was like I was on something high. I wasn't, but it feels like it is. Because I was, when I started project, I was 35, 36. So I wasn't really old, but I felt like I'm old because I was living in Russia, and I finished my college when I was about 20 years old, and 15 years, I haven't accomplished anything. I was just working for the government job which they assigned me after I finished the college. And I felt like I'm wasting my life. So when I decided to do this, this was no looking back. It was just charging full speed ahead. That's it. So.
Good.
So Vlad, tell us quickly, when you got sailing to America, when did you decide to do that, and were you afraid for repercussions?
You mean repercussions from Russia?
Yeah.
No. Because this was in 1990. At that time, Russia changed dramatically. So, no, it was, we didn't care about Russia at that time. That when we were in Fort Lauderdale, so this gentleman, Frank Lennon, who was publisher of Palm Springs magazine, he was really, he was shocked himself. We did, for example, we did auction. Again, Stopovo is just 3 weeks. Just imagine, arranged everything in 3 weeks. So we did auction of Russian art, which was shipped from Russia, of young Russian artists. And we did it Trump Towers in West Palm. And prices were enormous. People were basically trying to grab whatever they can. So when Frank saw it, and he says, well, guys, it's like you're a gold mine. We need to do something. And so he arranged that. He said, okay, let's do this goodwill tour. And at that time, it became known that Teddy Turner Jr. bought the boat, which was the card. Remember I mentioned that we had the boxing match with the guy from the card. So Teddy Turner bought the card after the race. So Frank he called Teddy Turner and say, why don't we do joint goodwill tour of entire Eastern Coast? So that's how it all started, and all went from there.
We're going to do one more with Jim.
Yeah. So, Vlad, is it on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I want to go back to a little design aspect, but again, I've never, and I've been on a lot of maxis. I skippered Great Britain too, and some of the more famous maxi boats. Many of them around the world boats, drum, and I've never been on a boat that sailed like this. Was it just luck of the draw and it just came out so well balanced, or did you do tank testing on a model, or what?
In a way, it's a combination of all the above. And the thing is, first of all, it's design is a combination of art and science. So you have to have imagination, and you have to sail, and you have to know how the boats behave. So in a nutshell, it's basically how you place center of sail area and center of lateral resistance. And I have a theory which basically I always like to put keel a little bit further back, and it always works better. But the amount is, again, you need to know statistics, tank testing. The good thing is actually, just imagine, when we started, I mentioned that we started design cooperative back in Russia. So there was initially there was just 3 guys. But one guy was professor from Maritime Academy, who he was teaching to students to design big ships, like ocean-going ships, not sailboats. But in his free time, he was designing sailboats. Now, there were tank tests in Russia, but because everything was kind of like government-owned and government-controlled, and in Russia it meant nobody owned and nobody controlled. So basically, there is a huge tank testing tank. You come to the guys who run it, and you say, well, guys, here's a bottle of vodka. Can we use it for 3 hours?
Vlad Murnikov, I want to thank you for a great presentation this evening on truly a story of venturing off the beaten path in life. But I think more than that, it's a story that dreams can come true, and you're a great example of really having a purpose, having a dream, and the barriers that you hit and you overcame to persist through that, and the incredible designs that the innovative changes you're making into the boating world is just really, really admirable. And I want to thank you for spending the time with us today.
Thank you for helping me to tell this story.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. And if you like what you hear tonight, we are here every single Thursday with great speakers like this. Please join us on YouTube. Let's give Vlad a great round of applause. Thank you very much.